Part 34. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 331. Chapter 331. Ouch, it hurts. What? Rongping didn't expect such a result, and his brows were knitted together, me and him. Why do we need to add more people, 2 men escorting a woman? It is true that it will increase the popularity of the actress, but on the contrary, for male stars, why should Zheng Qinhao be given points for the scenes that he originally took all to himself? Jimmy said, "Brother Rong, this is the best result." Brother Lin got it with great difficulty. Although he was unhappy, he still had to find a way to comfort Rongping. In the situation just now, Jimmy had no choice. Lin Yunan wanted 2 men and 1 woman, Zheng Qinhao also wanted 2 men and 1 woman in order to steal the spotlight, and the program team also wanted 2 men and 1 woman in order to increase the topic. In this case, how can Jimmy resist? But he couldn't tell Rongping yet because he couldn't bear it, otherwise, Rongping would think he was incompetent. He could only say to best actor Rongda, "Zheng Qinhao is a singer, and you are an actor. Your acting skills are countless times better than his. It is not easy to overpower him. Only when there is comparison and competition can you show off your skills better. If you are outstanding, your fans will like you more." Although Rongping was not happy, the matter was a foregone conclusion and he could only reluctantly accept this reason. Fighting for acting skills? Zheng Qinhao, just wait to be tortured. I will tell you to steal my show and see if I don't teach you a lesson. Regardless of Rongping's thoughts, Xiaoling was in a happy mood. I still remember that at the beginning of the show, no knight chose her. Rongping and Zheng Qinhao both rushed to choose Xiaoyu. As the show progressed, her performance was eye-catching, and the knights also switched sides from Xiaoyu and chose her. As of now, 2 knights are about to her to wear the crystal crown, but Xiaoyu, from the show what was originally bustling and lively has turned into the loneliness and pitifulness it is now. Comparing the two, the gap between the losers and the winners is as big as clouds of mud. Is there anything more joyful than this? Although Xiaoling doesn't want to pursue the sister anymore, she won't give in when competition arises in this life. The subsequent filming went smoothly. The 2 top male stars Zheng Qinhao and Rongping secretly competed with each other, showing off their acting skills, and worked hard to become the most perfect knights. Under the meticulous protection of the 2 of them, she climbed up the jade steps covered with petals, walked through the rain of romantic perfume, and put on the crystal crown. Seeing this scene, Gu Lin was equally angry as Xiaoyu. Miss Gu's hands were almost crushed. She had finally framed Ye Xinling, but she just didn't want this annoying woman to become a real princess. Why was it still her in the end? Gu Lin rushed to the program team to argue, "No. I don't recognize her. Her performance with injuries will affect the reputation of our Gu family. I demand a substitution. There are 2 producers, 1 big and 1 big. Is the eldest lady going to be finished?" "Miss Gu," he reasoned patiently, "if you replace Ye Xinling, the loss to this program will be even greater. If you insist on not using her, then we will have no choice but to refuse the sponsorship of Gu's perfume." How could this happen? Gu Lin was stunned. The program team would rather have Ye Xinling, that stinky woman, than sponsor their Gu's perfume. "If you don't sponsor, you won't sponsor." Gu Lin was angry and stamped her feet. "You insist on using her, right? Okay, our Gu family Chable will cancel the sponsorship. Get rid of all these perfumes." Miss Gu was furious and bossy, but no one paid attention to her. "Why don't you move? Are you all deaf? I said get rid of it." The producer really felt sorry for Gu Lin's IQ. "Miss Gu, our program team has signed contracts with sponsors. If you want to remove the perfume, you can. Please send your company's representative who signed the contract to talk to us. Everyone terminate the contract." Now that the contract has not been officially terminated, Even you cannot ask us to remove the perfume. Gu Lin was dumbfounded again. Why is it so troublesome? She glared at the producer hatefully, turned around and ran away to call her father. Xiaoling came over after filming the scene with the two male stars. The producer smiled bitterly and said to her, "Miss Ye, I'm afraid we will lose a sponsor this time because of you." Seeing her confusion, he briefly explained the conflict with Gu Lin. Xiaoling smiled slightly and said, "That's their loss." She was already numb to Gu Lin's constant troublemaking, and she didn't agree with what the producer said. What does it mean to lose sponsorship because of her? Please, it was because they were negligent in their work that they let random people come in to visit the class, and they failed to take good care of the props and costumes, causing her injury, and now they want to shift the responsibility to her? I'm sorry, Xiaoling doesn't take the blame. Speaking of which, the doctor told me to recuperate. I was injured in an accident and worked with the injury. I'm afraid I won't be able to recover for 10.5 months. I don't know how much I'll lose, she said, and countered again. The filmmaker smiled and left calmly. Who wouldn't say loss? It's good that she didn't come to them for compensation. The producer was a little distracted looking at her smile. He didn't come back to his senses until she was far away. Damn it, she's just a newly rising actress. How come she has such a strong aura? Unknowingly, she took control of the situation, just like a noble and arrogant queen. It's like a hair of hers is worth more than the mountains of gold and silver they work so hard to earn. How does this feel? Such a girl. The eldest Miss Gu's disagreement with her may really be the Gu family's loss. Xiaoling didn't take Rong Ping's car this time. She returned to her Porsche parked in the garage and was so tired that she almost collapsed. After I relaxed, I felt the pain from the wound on my waist again. The dozens of places where needles had pricked me felt like heart-wrenching pain. She frowned and groaned, then lay down on the back seat of the car, uncomfortably bending her legs to lay her body flat, trying to reduce the burden on her waist as much as possible. "You bastard, you villain, if I find out who you are, I will kill you." She buried her face in the pillow, held her waist and groaned, while muttering. From the front, the driver's deep voice came, "Who do you think it is?" She was startled and raised her head to look for a long time. Li Lile, is this guy addicted to being a driver? Why was he quietly lurking in her car this time? Didn't he already call? Doesn't he need to come? Is the wound okay? He asked, turning to look at her, his expression full of concern. Last week, he had a good time pretending to be a driver. In order to see her more, this week he ignored her objection and pretended to be a driver again, but unexpectedly he heard the news that she was injured. He couldn't go out in the car and looked forward to the stars and the moon. She finally finished filming the show and got into the car. The doors and windows were closed in the quiet Porsche, leaving only the two of them. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 332. Chapter 332 Tenfold Revenge. Xiaoling moaned again, it hurts me so much. Peppa Pain, maybe Gu Lin? Or Xia Yu? I am also not certain. He threw a blanket on her, just covering her injured waist. What did the doctor say? He didn't continue to ask her about the framer, but that didn't mean he let it go. No matter who was behind the scenes, he would find out and make the other person pay 10 times the price. However, there is no need for her to know these things. Doctor, Xiaoling tilted her head and thought for a while. The doctor said it's not a big deal, it's okay. In fact, the doctor said that he should rest and observe closely. Although he received a tetanus shot, the risk of infection is not ruled out. Be very careful for a while. However, she didn't intend to talk about these troubles to make him worry. Li Lei felt relieved a little, and then he had the time to scold her, "Are you so stupid that you don't even know to check before wearing it? I didn't know there would be needles." Xia Xiaoling, a child, felt aggrieved and shouted again, "Oh, it hurts. It hurts you so much." Mr. Boss started the car and drove out along the highway, saying, "Who is clamoring for independence? Who wants me to give you space and say you can do it alone? This is how you can do it. If you can't take care of yourself, come back to Tianyi as soon as possible and I'll beat them 10 each." "Xiaoling, I can do it. This is an accident." "An accident?" The boss glanced at her disdainfully in the rearview mirror. "Xiaoling, Li Lei, what are you looking at? What do you mean? Huh? Don't you believe me? I tell you. Oh, it hurts." Oh, she was so excited that she got up unknowingly, he almost ducked his waist. Mr. Boss slowed down the car and drove more steadily. Seeing her cute and aggrieved look in the rearview mirror, Boss's originally irritable mood because of her injury calmed down a little, and he unconsciously curled up the corners of his lips. Within a few days, Li Lei found out that Gu Lin was the instigator of this incident. "Boss, what should I do?" Tan Ying, Li Lei's current special assistant, put the investigation results in front of him and waited for his next instructions. Old rule, pay back tenfold. Li Lei didn't even move his brows. His reputation on the road is not for nothing. Anyone who offends him will take double revenge. This is already the minimum standard. But this time it's the eldest daughter of the Gu family. Tan Ying hesitated a little. Didn't the boss want to offend the family by treating the little sister of the family of friends like this? What if the Gu family comes to speak ill of Mr. Li? You must know that the successor to the head of the Li family has not yet been determined. Li Feng and Li Lei are still in a fierce game. Maybe a little thing can affect the balance of victory and defeat. The eldest lady of the Gu family, Li Lei, smiled kindly and spoke softly, but with murderous intent. Who does she count in front of the future young mistress of the Li family? He thought of Gu Lin again and again for the sake of friendship in the world. He was patient, but he didn't expect that she was so crazy and had the guts to directly hurt Xiaoling's body. If we don't take revenge now, where will we leave Xiaoling? No matter how deep a friendship is, there will be times when it is exhausted. Tan Ying was shocked, knowing that the young master was really angry, so he followed the order and left. It was 11 rusty beads that hurt Xiaoling, so the number of rusty beads that were repaid to Gu Lin would be 110. In the secret cell, when Tan Ying led the executioners and drove the 110 long nails into Gu Lin's body, she howled in pain like a slaughtering pig. No, it's not me. It's really not me." She cried bitterly, collapsed on the ground and begged, "Let me go, please let me go, I have never used these beads. I just secretly inserted a few sewing needles into Yezingling's skirt, I didn't insert these beads, I don't know how things turned out like this, spare me, please, it hurts." "Not her?" Tan Ying's pupils tightened slightly. Given Miss Gu's level of idiot, she shouldn't be able to lie at this point. It seems that this matter needs to be further investigated. However, even if she didn't put the beads, she also put the sewing needle. If this matter was reported to Li Lei would probably still be punished 10 times. Tan Ying was too lazy to go back and forth, so he simply finished the punishment at once, ignoring Gu Lin's wails, and pierced a total of 110 beads into her body. His pricking method was different from Gu Lin's random insertion of sewing needles before, and also different from Xia Yu's limited ability to insert beads into her waist. The people on his side were all specially trained in torture and knew that where should the needle be inserted to cause the most pain? The pain would be excruciating, but nothing could be found during the injury test. Gu Lin was tortured by them until she fainted. The last thought before she fell into coma was that she was so scared. What else could Brother Lay not do for that woman? She is in so much pain and regrets so much. Here, Li Lei got Tan Ying's reward. After Miss Gu complained, I sent someone to investigate carefully. It was Xiaoyu who replaced the sewing needle with a bead nail and inserted it in a more hidden position, which made the success rate much higher, Tan Ying said. Then let Xiaoyu have a taste of this, Li Lei said. Tan Ying took the order and left. These things are being carried out secretly and very quickly, in just a few days. Xiaoling, who knew nothing about it, still rushed to make announcements as usual. Due to her injury, the progress was a little slower, which made her temper a little grumpy. Li Lei often disguised himself as a driver to pick her up and drop her off, and made delicious snacks to feed her. On this day, while Xiaoling was eating snacks and complaining to him about the lagging progress, she received a call from Lin Yunan, telling her that next week's Bizarre Adventure filming would be suspended. That's great, Xiaoling said on the phone. There are 2 announcements that are too late, so we can take advantage of this opportunity to catch up, she told Lin Yunan to rearrange her schedule and hung up the phone, feeling a little curious. She asked Li Lei, I heard that Xiaoyu was sick and couldn't participate in the show, so it was rescheduled. I don't know what kind of illness she has. Li Lei smiled so hard that he showed his white teeth. Who doesn't have headaches and fever? I only took 1 week's leave, it won't be serious, he thought with his toes and figured out what was going on. Tan Ying and others were in Xiaoyu with more than 100 needles stuck in her body. It would be strange if she still had the energy to crawl out to film. Xiaoling was just curious and put the matter behind her. She didn't even know who framed her, let alone that Li Lei had avenged her. Her schedule was very full and she was so busy that before she knew it, it was time to shoot Bizarre Adventure in 2 weeks. This time it was still on location. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 333. Chapter 333. Say hello to Director Pei. Because of what happened last time, Li Lei didn't trust her, so he drove her there early in the morning. If you need anything, just call me. When he arrived at the set, he still reminded him earnestly. I know, Xiaoling smiled, don't sit in the car all the time. There are many resorts nearby. You can find one to rest in. I'll let you know when I'm done. Li Lei also nodded with a smile. This outdoor shooting took a long time. We had to make up for last week's progress and catch up with this week's original progress. Therefore, the program team arranged for 4 days and 3 nights, with several scene changes in between. Li Lei asked her about the general shooting route and decided to settle down in a resort where he could see her shooting scene. Then he went there happily. Xiaoling was photographed with the team. This time, the atmosphere on the set was a bit subtle. After the last bead nail incident, everyone was cautious, fearing that others would frame them, or that they would be wrongly accused of being the murderer after something happened. Especially when it comes to Xiaoling, several people came over to make insinuations. Have you found the person who inserted the bead nails last time? Xiaoling didn't know anything at all. No, I'm busy, I haven't had time to check yet. She believed in reporting any grudges face to face, but finding clues was really not her strong suit, and the announcement schedule was too full, so she still had to recuperate. I had to put this matter aside for the time being. Speaking of which, she was quite regretful. I don't know which did it. If you are so unqualified, you won't be able to get married in the future. The person she suspected was Gulin, so she cursed her for being unable to get married. Beside, Xiaoyu, who was sitting and drinking mineral water, was feeling poorly. She had more than 100 beads inserted into her body, and she was in excruciating pain. She had to nurse her for half a month, but she still hadn't fully recovered. As a result, the culprit who caused all this didn't know anything about it. As soon as she thought about it, she knew that it was Lilei who didn't want the woman he loved to know about these dirty things, so he hid everything and didn't even go to Xiaoling to show off his merits. Xiaoyu looked at Xiaoling bitterly. Why is this woman so lucky? Xiaoling was not aware of her gaze and continued to chat with others, which made Xiaoyu secretly grit her teeth in anger. The first day passed peacefully like this. The next morning, I took a few shots and then stopped for lunch. A staff member from the program team came to Xiaoling. Miss Ye, Director Zhao is looking for you on the second floor of Jingshui Villa. Director Zhao? Xiaoling looked at Lin Yunan beside her suspiciously. Lin Yunan explained to her, he is the director of the TV station that broadcasts Bizarre Adventure, but she felt strange and turned to the staff member. What's the matter with Director Zhao? No wonder he was wary. The actress was in the entertainment. Being in the industry is always a little more troublesome than being an actor. There are a lot of unspoken rules that come and go. Xiaoling and Director Zhao are strangers to each other, but being invited by name like this is not necessarily a good thing. The staff member said, I don't know either, the director didn't tell me. Do you want to go? Xiaoling asked Lin Yunan with her eyes. Now, she had great trust in the ability of this big manager. Lin Yunan pondered for a few seconds and said to her, I will go with you. The appointment was at noon instead of at night. Things might not be as he thought. At least this time, Director Zhao would not do anything to her. Why not go and take a look, give the TV station a face, and what if there is something serious? Xiaoling nodded. Wait a moment, I'll reply to the message. She grabbed her mobile phone and sent a text message to Lilei. The main message was that she couldn't sneak out to eat with him at noon because she wanted to meet Director Zhao of the TV station. After sending the text message, he said to Lin Yunan and the staff, let's go. The staff led the way, because the director had not specifically ordered not to lead people, and celebrities always have people around them, so he didn't mind Lin Yunan joining. Not long after, he took the people to Jingshui Villa. Jingshui Villa is the most upscale resort nearby. Lilei was still complaining yesterday. If it weren't for the fact that he could see her filming location, he would also like to stay at Jingshui Villa. Xiaoling also laughed at him for being extravagant and lewd, but she didn't expect that she would be invited over today. She walked up the quiet corridor, turned around a screen where koi fish were playing in the water, and came to the open space. The wooden floor with beautiful texture, the exquisite sea of tea, and the gurgling water. Director Zhao was drinking tea with a man. To be precise, he was drinking tea with a man, because the smile on his face was one that showed hospitality and humility at a glance. The man next to him was wearing a dressy sweater. He took off his coat and put it on his hands casually. The man drank tea calmly, and even his tea drinking posture was impeccable. He didn't need the luxury car and beautiful woman to accompany him, and he already looked elegant. Only a noble family that has been prominent for many generations and has experienced countless dynasties and generations can raise such a person. From Xiaoling's perspective, she could only see half of the man's face. However, just this half of his face was enough for her to recognize him, Pei Ziyan. For a moment, her forward steps stopped, and Director Zhao called her over. Could it be that he wanted to see Pei Ziyan? Director, Miss Ye is here. It was the staff member who broke the silence and came forward to report. Director Zhao, who was currently being courteous to Pei Ziyan, turned his head and saw Xiaoling. The flattery on his face disappeared and was replaced by a somewhat reserved and arrogant expression befitting the director's status. Miss Ye, right, he looked at Xiaoling without leaving any trace. It was strange that although his appearance was very delicate, he was not very outstanding in the entertainment circle with so many beauties. How come, Dongpei is so good at this? No, that's not right, it's because the girl in front of her looks a bit like the late Queen Xiaoling. I heard that Director Pei has been collecting girls who look like the Queen Xiaoling. It turns out that the rumors are true. As director Zhao is a popular leader of satellite TV, what kind of superstar has he not seen? She has long ignored the recent rise of female stars like Ye Xingling. He called her here. In the final analysis, it was for Dongpei. I heard that director Pei is interested in variety shows recently. I heard that Mr. Pei is on vacation recently. I heard that the vacation location is very close to the filming location of Bizarre Adventure. Therefore, director Zhao rushed to the location and asked Pei to have tea and chat. He introduced the station's variety shows, including Bizarre Adventure, to seek opportunities for cooperation. Director Zhao felt that the hard work paid off. Just when he was about to stop talking, director Pei finally showed a little interest and proposed to meet a female star who was recently filming the Bizarre Adventure program, Ye Xingling. Of course director Zhao was too busy to invite people. Although this Ye Xingling is not his own artist, as long as he can deal with Dongpei, he doesn't mind getting her into Dongpei's bed. Moreover, in his mind, Ye Xingling should be very happy and grateful to him. How many female celebrities dream of being on the line with director Pei? So, he put on a condescending posture in front of her. Come here and say hello to Dongpei. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 334. Chapter 334, Who hurt whom? She was unhappy and did not move. Had she known that Pei Ziyan was here, she would never have come. Why are you still standing there stupidly? Director Zhao frowned, fearing that her lack of knowledge would offend the distinguished guest. I tell you, don't be so afraid of life. Director Pei is the emperor's chairman and will not eat you. He thought that the female star in front of him had little knowledge and had never heard of Dongpei, so he introduced her to her. At this time, Pei Ziyan also saw her, put down the teacup in his hand, and turned around. The moment their eyes met, he saw clearly the unhappiness in her eyes. The prickly and guarded look was very much like the girl in his heart. He called out softly, Xiaoling. His voice was deep and mellow, yet so gentle that it felt like a spring breeze, as if he was saying hello to an old friend he hadn't seen for a long time. Why didn't you say you were here? She was still unhappy, with a bit of questioning in her tone. Pei Ziyan smiled. If you had known in advance, would you still come? Xiaoling was speechless. Come and sit. Pei Ziyan pulled the seat next to him. Have you been working hard lately? You've lost weight. Director Zhao was stunned as he watched from the sidelines. Only then did he realize that the two of them knew each other and might have a close relationship. He originally thought it was Ye Xingling who was shallow, but it turned out that he was shallow. When had director Pei been so nice to others? Help a little actress pull a chair with your own hands. Has the sun come out in the west? For a moment, director Zhao was a little embarrassed. However, he did not get the position of director for nothing. He quickly adjusted his mentality and greeted him diligently and politely. Waiter, bring me another pot of tea. Xiaoling, however, still stood still and looked at Pei Ziyan. Is something wrong? Can't I have tea with you if I have nothing to do? Pei Ziyan looked at her, with a hint of loneliness on his handsome, godlike face. I thought you cared about me when we said goodbye last time in the club. Xiaoling. The expressions on the faces of Director Zhao and Lin Yunan next to them were wrong. Director Zhao thought to himself, a club. It turns out that the two of them have progressed so quickly. Remember to remind the people on the program team not to offend Director Pei's lover when you go back. Lin Yunan thought to himself, damn, you bastard, do you dare to speak more ambiguously? Ruining Xiaoling's reputation is fun. Yes, after the meal in the club, I thought that Director Pei would change the way he appeared so as not to scare our little Ling. Lin Yunan smiled angrily. There were too many people eating that day, so I gave him. Xiaoling was in a hurry when she got home and didn't have time to say hello to Director Pei. Hello, I'm Xiaoling's manager, Lin Yunan. He cleverly explained that the so-called club was just a dinner party, and there were many people present, and at the end, Xiao Ling was in a hurry. Ling was sent home by her agent, and there was no ulterior secret. Director Zhao immediately heard the implication of Lin Yunan's words, and his mind went around a few more times. It seems that Yexing Ling is not enough to be Director Pei's lover, but is she playing hard to get? It turns out that Dong Pei is good at this kind of tone. Mr. Taiwan President silently made a note in his mind. It is very important to know what such a large partner likes. Lin Yunan? Pei Ziyan narrowed his eyes slightly. He had heard about Lin Yunan many years ago. At that time, Lin Yunan and Li Er always provoked his Xiao Ling. Xiao Ling would come to him every 3 days to complain and cry, saying that Lin Yunan was going too far and doing bad things. Ask Pei Ziyan to cut him into pieces and throw him into the sea to feed the sharks. Although Pei Ziyan didn't really tear Lin Yunan into pieces, he did not have a good impression of this person. However, now that Xiao Ling has passed away, cutting her into pieces has become her last wish. Regarding her last wish, he will fulfill it one by one. Unknowingly, there was a bit of chilling look in his eyes. Even though Lin Yunan was brave, his heart skipped a beat when he saw it, and he almost took a step back subconsciously. He raised his head, suppressed the fear in his heart, and looked at Pei Ziyan without giving in. Even if Pei Ziyan had murderous intentions in his heart, he knew that this was not something he could handle in this situation. With his status, he was too lazy to argue with a small agent in front of the TV station at this moment. He ignored Lin Yunan and said to Xiaoling, "Let's talk alone." Xiaoling didn't want to talk to him alone, but when she recalled the way he looked at Lin Yunan just now, she wondered whether Lin Yunan was in danger because of being with her. She knew how scary Pei Ziyan was and didn't want him to vent his anger on the people around her, so she said, "Okay." Xiaoling, Lin Yunan was worried. "I'm fine," she smiled at Lin Yunan, "it's the same as the last time we had dinner at the club. It's just a chat with Director Pei. I'll be back soon, don't worry." Lin Yunan thought about it, looked at them deeply, and then went out with Director Zhao. Pei Ziyan calmly made tea for her. She took it and took a sip. Pei Ziyan looked at her quietly. The girl in front of her was thinner than before, but her complexion was still fair, and she looked slender and beautiful. It's been a long time for her to be quiet like this, but why? "Why are you here?" Xiaoling was the first to break the silence. "Coming to find you," Pei Ziyan said. She was too busy these days, and it was unrealistic to block her at her rented place. He had no choice but to find an excuse to look for her near the filming location of Bizarre Adventure. Director Zhao thought he had tried every possible means to hook up with Pei Ziyan, but unexpectedly, Pei Ziyan used him to summon Xiaoling. Xiaoling was stunned. Did she come to find her? Is something wrong? He looked at her silently, his silent pressure making her nervous. When he was imprisoned, the uneasy feeling came back. Whenever he looked at her like this, she didn't know whether she would receive a gentle caress or a violent storm of hurt in the next second. Her body stiffened, and she subconsciously grasped the armrests of the seat. Afraid of this, suddenly, he smiled. The smile was very light and did not reach his eyes. "Why didn't you know you were afraid when you hurt Xiaoyu?" Hurt Xiaoyu? This time, Xiaoling was really stunned. I didn't. What on earth is going on? Because of you, Xiaoyu was nailed with more than 100 beads by Li Lei's men, didn't you know? How does she know? God, when did Li Lei do such a thing? However, Li Lei always had a reason for doing things. He sent someone to nail Xiaoyu's beads, so, it turned out that the person who put beads on my princess dress was Xiaoyu. It's her. Pei Ziyan looked at her surprised expression, and then he believed that she didn't know, and the pressure that was originally overwhelming was withdrawn. How could Xiaoyu do such a thing? Xiaoling was very angry. Have I provoked her? She always comes to harm me. I treat you well, but she doesn't feel happy, so it's understandable that she does something a little out of line. Pei Ziyan said slowly, she has been weak since she was a child, and you have nailed her so many times this time. You have gone too far. What? Xiaoling was stunned again. After a while, she was so angry that she was shaking all over and couldn't speak clearly. Pei Ziyan, you mean, it's justifiable for her to hurt me, but it's a heinous crime for me to hurt her. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 335. Chapter 335 Princess Temper. Pei Ziyan looked at her, his eyes still gentle, as if looking at an ignorant little girl. You slapped her and scolded her, but I didn't say anything. But this time, she nailed you 11 beads, you nailed her 110 times, that's too much. The person sitting in front of me today is you, Xiaoling, do you know? Pei Ziyan paused slightly, and his tone became softer. If it were different. Others have died a long time ago. Yes, Yingling is special, yes, she is the one who looks most like Xiaoling. But Xiaoyu is also special. She is the only person left by Xiaoling in this world who is closely related by blood, and she was Xiaoling's most beloved sister during her lifetime. He doesn't know who he should favor more. He usually turns a blind eye to minor conflicts. But this time, when Xiaoyu came to him with wounds all over her body and crying, he could no longer stand by and watch. If he couldn't protect Xiaoling's only sister during her lifetime, what qualifications did he have to face her? He came all the way to warn Ye Xingling and planned to show her some strength. Next to the sea of tea, she laughed angrily. Okay, Pei Ziyan, Xiaoyu is your sweetheart, right? It doesn't matter, I can treat Xiaoyu well, I can admit my mistakes to her, and I can carry her shoes before and after riding without any problem, as long as you don't come to me again. Why do you think she hates me? Isn't it because you are so smart? Why do you want to provoke me? I got involved in your mess. What if Li Lei helped me out now? Wouldn't you frown even if I was bullied to death? The more she spoke, the more aggrieved and sad she became. Countless past events came to mind, filling her mind. She remembered that when she was imprisoned in her previous life, Xiaoyu said that her sister didn't want to eat, and then her dinner was gone. Xiaoyu said that her sister went to the garden today despite the ban and got sick in the rain. It was hard, Xiaoyu said that her sister wanted to escape, she didn't dare to recall the purgatory past. Her face was pale and her eyes were red. She tried her best to hold back tears. She pushed away the teacup and stood up, staggering back. Pei Ziyan, don't come to me again. Never, come again. Xiaoling, seeing her tears, his heart clenched in pain and he called out instinctively. She did not stay, just like a butterfly bringing up a gust of wind, she disappeared in the dark and long corridor outside the door in an instant. Pei Ziyan looked at the direction she left, lost in thought for a long time. Boss, the sudden call was respectful but a little cautious. Pei Ziyan turned around and saw Chu Chen standing beside him at some point, wearing a suit and leather shoes, holding 2 documents in his hand. What's the matter? He felt a little tired and raised his hand to rub his eyebrows. Chu Chen said, this is the overall cooperation agreement between Nebula Music Channel and Purple Wind Chime Community. As long as you sign, they can immediately remove all of MSE's recent announcements. These are the 2 largest distribution centers for music enthusiasts in the country. If it is blocked for a period of time, the losses will be heavy. Take these 2 agreements and destroy them, Pei Ziyan said. Chu Chen was stunned. No need. Xiaoyu's injury incident clearly made Pei Ziyan angry, and it was he who ordered Chu Chen to give Ye Xingling something good to look at. Chu Chen made the blocking plan overnight and had to get his approval before executing it. After finalizing the contract, he just needed to sign it. Why did he change his mind in just a few days? This is not like Pei Ziyan's style. Chu Chen was thoughtful and immediately remembered that when he came here just now, Ye Xingling ran out crying. What happened in the meantime? While he was speculating in his mind, on the surface, he responded yes respectfully. After a pause, he asked, what about the plan to suppress Tianyi? The matter of helping Xiaoyu vent his anger was divided into two parts, one was to suppress Ye Xingling, and the other was to suppress Li Lei's Tianyi. Proceed as usual, Pei Xian said without hesitation. Chu Chen bowed slightly and saluted him, and was about to leave, when he suddenly heard Pei Xian say again, put all the manpower and material resources that were previously invested in suppressing Ye Xingling into suppressing Tianyi. Yes, Chu Chen saw that the big boss was in a bad mood and should be more careful, so he resigned without a breath. In the silent tea room, Pei Xian closed his eyes. In front of her eyes, Ye Xingling's face of shock, anger, and hurt could not be removed. She said with a tearful voice, if only Li Lei hadn't helped vent his anger. Li Lei? This name was like a thorn, piercing deeply into Pei Xian's heart. In front of Shuijing Villa, Lin Yunan was guarding outside and was shocked when he saw Xiaoling running out crying, what's wrong? She sniffed desperately and shook her head, I was bitten by a dog. What's going on? Lin Yunan felt a little relieved when he saw that she still had the energy to curse, but because Director Pei inside was not an ordinary person, as a manager, he had to pay more attention. Last time when we had dinner in the club, I didn't tell you, what's going on with you two? She shook her head again, raised her sleeves and wiped away her tears. Lin Yunan looked at her face that was smoothed like a tabby cat, grabbed her arm, took out a pair of sunglasses from his pocket and put them on her, you just debuted or something? It's been almost 2 years, can you make some progress? How can you meet people like this? What should you do if they ask you what happened? Xiaoling obediently asked him to put on his sunglasses, sniffed, and managed to regain her composure. If Pei Xian uses force on you, you won't be able to escape. She didn't say anything, so Lin Yunan started to make random guesses. It's not like he's going to make you cry, right? You're not from his company, so what's he talking about? Besides, if he can really scold you to tears. Lin Yunan shook his head, finding this unbelievable. Neither Wei Shayin nor I have scolded you, so what kind of scolding skills does he have to have? Can't you tell, he still has this kind of talent? It's so noisy, Xiaoling complained in a low voice. In order to prevent him from guessing any more, she simply said, he wronged me for hurting Xiaoyu. I feel wrong. This is only a small part of the truth, but the more is it cannot be explained to outsiders. Lin Yunan was stunned. Are you crying just because of this trivial matter? Why did he wrongly accuse me? Xiaoling was still very angry and lowered her voice, I hate being wronged. Lin Yunan was speechless. Who has this princess temperament? Sure enough, a woman's mind is trouble. He didn't take her little grievance seriously at all, and just said, then do you know how Xiaoyu was hurt and who hurt her? Xiaoling glanced at him warily but said nothing. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 336. Chapter 336 Visiting Team. It was Li Lei who hurt Xiaoyu. But no matter what the reason is, this matter is a personal injury after all, and if it is exposed, it may cause Li Lei trouble. Xiaoling always looked towards Li Lei in her heart and remained silent even when asked by her agent. But what kind of old man is Lin Yunan? Looking at her expression, he already knew that she knew what she was doing, so he smiled broadly and said, why are you guarding me like a thief? Don't be nervous, your wife has already said hello to me, and she said that Xiaoyu's Bian may retaliate, so ask me to protect you. Li Lei was very thoughtful when doing things. He didn't tell Xiaoling because he didn't want her to know about the bad things, but he told Lin Yunan to prevent the enemy from counterattacking. However, Xiaoling didn't appreciate it. Why does he say everything to others, and he is not afraid that others will get into trouble if they find out? Am I an outsider? Lin Yunan was dissatisfied. Xiaoling, isn't he just her agent for money? The two of them are not even friends. Lin Yunan was even more dissatisfied. We are grasshoppers on the same boat. I care about this matter, and it's not for you. You think I'm patiently taking care of it? If your work is affected by this little personal thing of yours, I'll find you who's going to cry. Xiaoling. Uncle Lin, if you are so excited, is it because of menopause? It's a pity that Lin Yunan couldn't hear her inner complaints and kept complaining to her for a long time. Xiaoling endured his nagging in a daze all the way. She just thought, what is wrong with this world? Why does she feel that everyone is more reasonable than her? Back to the shooting scene. She ushered in the afternoon shooting with a sad mood. In the afternoon we took a photo of a group of water scenes, a natural pool under a clear waterfall, with a depth of about 2 meters. The outside of the pool is blocked by a gate decorated with gravel, which is not only beautiful, but also capable of storing water and releasing floods. On weekdays, the pond water overflows, forming a new waterfall flowing to the river bend below. Here, it was developed into an open-air swimming pool by the local tourism department, which looks full of the beauty of nature. Xiaoling felt depressed for a long time, and finally relaxed a little because of the beautiful scenery in front of her. Putting on the swimsuit she had prepared in advance, she walked out, and immediately many people couldn't take their eyes away. She wore a rain-stained sky-blue one-piece swimsuit. It was neither revealing nor overly conservative. The style was elegant and simple, revealing a piece of snow-white back and looming butterfly bones. She stood in the water and looked like a goddess descending. Xiaoling is so beautiful. Luo pulled Bai Murong beside her. Bai Murong looked at the heartless little loli in front of her speechlessly. He is her knight, how do you expect him to answer? Are you talking about little Ayame? Isn't she jealous? This idea made Bai Murong a little irritated inexplicably. Luo was unaware, with dreamy eyes. Xiaoling is so beautiful, Murong, look at her movements in the water, the way she turns around, wow, she looks like a mermaid. I'm so envious. What are you envious of? Bai Murong stopped looking at Xiaoling and looked at Luo. Luo looked yearning. I really hope that one day I can become so beautiful, so elegant, and look like a mermaid. Bai Murong, you look very much like me now. Ah, Luo raised his head and looked at him. Bai Murong couldn't help but stretched out his hand to pinch her face, which still had some baby fat. It felt good to the touch. I said, you also look like a mermaid princess, a plump fat mermaid today. She wearing a pink split swimsuit, the ruffled skirt is full of girlish fantasy. It does look a little fat, but very cute. Bai Murong liked it very much, but he said, little fat fish. Luo was startled at first, then realized what he was doing, and went to hit him. Murong, you are annoying. Wow, you are laughing at me. You are the worst. You are so bad. Ha 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 ha. Bai Murong smiled and ran away. The two of them were playing around here, and over there. Xiaoling had tried several sets of shots, perfect posture, perfect light and shadow effects. If it weren't for time constraints, the director would have liked to help her shoot more. Xiaoyu also changed into a swimsuit and came out. Perhaps because she had been pricked by needles, she chose a very conservative one-piece swimsuit, white, that tightly covered her chest and back, leaving nothing exposed. Actresses who take the innocent route are just different. A cameraman shook his head at the side. It's so tightly wrapped that I can't let go at all. He changed the view from several angles in succession, and finally despaired. This swimsuit shows Xiaoyu's figure is not worth mentioning. She has no and refuses to show them. She can't even compare to Luo. That little fat fish, he obviously heard the laughter of Lugo Lugo and by Murong over there. Not yet. Knight, please pat me. Standing next to him was the director. Wouldn't it be enough to give Yasin Ling and Lugo Lugo a few more shots? Yasin Ling is really photogenic in anything she wears. By the way, as for the male star, please pay attention to Zheng Chenhao, his muscles. I just hope that I will shine this time. Zheng Chenhao is taking the tough guy route, and his muscles have been trained, enough to make countless young girls blush and their hearts beat. He bared his upper body and stood next to Xiaoling in his boxer swimming trunks. Well, there was nothing to do in this filming. Just the two of them sacrificing their looks could last an hour and a half. It's easy for these two. The cameraman had no objection and went to adjust the camera position. Over there, Zheng Chenhao's body was full of male star hormones, which made Xiaoling feel a little uncomfortable. It wasn't because she was blushing and her heart was beating, but because she wasn't used to being so close to a strange man. In terms of figure, he really can't compare to Li Lei. Although Li Lei's muscles are not that exaggerated, they are all made of real swords and guns, and are full of dangerous explosive power. And what about Zheng Chenhao? It looks seductive in the camera, but it's actually of no use. Xiaoling complained unkindly to King Zheng in her heart and swam back to the shore silently. Zheng Tianwang didn't notice anything and still showed off his muscles to the camera. Seeing that all the cameras were either filming Zheng Chenhao or chasing after Xiaoling, Lugo Lugo and others, Xiaoyu, who was resting by the pool, became depressed. What, if she hadn't been pricked with needles, her body would be riddled with holes now. Do you think she doesn't want to wear a more beautiful swimsuit? Yasin Ling, bitch, she must avenge this. She seemed to have no intention of doing so and swam around in the water, as if she was familiar with the terrain. Swimming to the outside of the pool, where it connects to the waterfall below, she checked the mechanism below. It was very good. She smiled with satisfaction and swam back. As soon as I returned to the shore, I was stopped by someone. Miss Xiaoyu is here. It was a staff member with a warm and respectful smile on his face. Dr. Pei is here to visit your class. I take you there. Pei Dong? Brother Zion is here? Xiaoyu's eyes lit up and she was full of joy. When her sister was still alive, Brother Zi Hung often visited her sister's class. How she wished she could also be visited by Brother Zi Hung. Now, he is finally here. She put on her sweetest smile and stepped forward to greet him. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 337. Chapter 337 Accident. Pei Zion was surrounded by people, accompanied by director Zhao himself. He came to the shooting site on an impromptu basis. At noon, the girl ran out of Jingshui Villa with red eyes, and that look was imprinted on his heart. For some reason, he always felt unexplainably uneasy. If he didn't confirm with his own eyes that she was okay, there was no way he could return like this. He listened absently to the compliments from the people around him, but his eyes were searching for the girl's figure calmly. No. She was obviously still here just now, wearing a bright blue swimsuit after the rain, with her hair in a high bun, like a mermaid emerging from the water. However, in just a blink of an eye, she disappeared, as if she was deliberately avoiding him, not even leaving her back behind. On the other hand, it was Xiaoyu who came towards me with a sweet smile. Today she was wearing a plain white one-piece swimsuit. When she came ashore, she had a big towel thrown over it. She still looked so sick and frail, and she couldn't help but feel uncomfortable. The crowd made way for her. Brother Zion, she called sweetly, thank you for coming to see me. Pei Zion didn't come to see her, but he didn't point it out at this time. He said to Director Zhao and others, you can go and do your own business. You don't need to accompany me. Director Zhao and others thought he was going to be alone with Xiaoyu, so they left with a wink. Pei Zion sat down on the chair next to him. The view from here was very good, and he had a panoramic view of the entire pool. Xiaoyu followed him and sat down next to him. She had nothing to say. It's very cold today. I caught a cold in the morning, but I kept insisting on shooting. Brother Zion, let's go together when the work is over. Is it okay to eat? I seem to have an upset stomach and I'm not used to the set lunches. Don't mess with Yasin Ling from now on, Pei Zion interrupted her. What? Xiaoyu was stunned. Brother Zion came here specially to visit the class. Was it just to say this to her? No. Xiaoyu, who was as thoughtful as Xiaoyu, suddenly realized that Brother Zi Hung was not here to visit her class at all, and he didn't even come to talk to her at all. His eyes were always looking at the field, looking for something. It's Yasin Ling, that stinky woman Yasin Ling. Brother Zion is here to visit her class. This knowledge was like a sharp knife, piercing into Xiaoyu's heart. However, no matter how jealous she was, she did not dare to get angry at Pei Zion. With a wronged look on her face, Brother Zion, it's not that I provoked her, but that she was too domineering and always had trouble with me. She was still waiting to say more. As he went down, he was stunned by Pei Zion's look. His eyes were not sharp, but there was a coldness hidden under the gentle appearance, as if he could see through everything. Don't fool me with those little tricks. Pei Zion's voice was calm. Xiao, I know who you are provoking whom. This time, I suppressed Li Lei's business to vent your anger, but if you provoke Yasin Ling again, you will suffer the consequences. The last few words are very soft. But Xiaoyu knew very well that the softer he spoke, the harder he became. Moreover, he said, suppressed Li Lei. In other words, he didn't touch Yasin Ling, right? Xiaoyu was so angry that her teeth were about to break. Why was Brother Zion so partial to that stinky woman? Even her identity as Sister Xiaoling doesn't apply. Brother Zion, could he have fallen in love with her? Xiaoyu was startled by the idea in her mind, and immediately rejected it. No, it was impossible. Brother Zion was deeply in love with his sister. How could he fall in love with another woman? If you want to talk about falling in love, you can only fall in love with her. Xiaoyu. Who is Yasin Ling? However, as if to mock her, Pei Zion's eyes suddenly became focused. Xiaoyu looked along and saw Yasin Ling. At this moment, Yasin Ling was still wearing her rain-stained sky-blue swimsuit. Accompanied by her assistant and manager, she was having a scene with several male stars, with a smile on her face. The smile was full of smiles. The facial features that were originally just delicate were vivid and lively, and when the eyes moved, they were so beautiful that it took people's breath away. Xiaoling. Pei Zion murmured. Xiaoyu heard his voice and clenched her hands in secret hatred, her sharp nails digging into her palms. She was now extremely grateful that she had made arrangements earlier and tampered with the sluice gate. After today, as long as today is past, this named Yasin Ling will die in a filming accident and disappear forever. Otherwise, if she continues to live, Xiaoyu wonders, will one day Pei Zion really be with this bitch? Xiaoyu stared closely at the field. Xiaoling, who was in the field, also saw them. Seeing Xiaoyu and Pei Zion sitting side by side, she laughed at herself. Sure enough, her thousands of words were never worth Xiaoyu's lies. In Pei Zion's heart, she was as light as a feather. No matter, since we are strangers from now on, he can favor whomever he likes and wish for whoever he wants. Xiaoling turned away with a feeling of giving up on herself. Concentrate your mind and go down into the pool. According to the process previously released by the crew, the first scene is her standing alone in the water and playing small games with a few people on the shore. She stayed in the water for a full 10 minutes. In early autumn, the pool in the mountains was very cold, and she had to gather all her energy to avoid shivering. Perfect performance. The game went very smoothly, and everyone on the crew felt relaxed unconsciously. Xiaoling stayed in the water for a long time, and her body gradually became numb. Just when she was thinking about whether to go ashore and take a rest to prevent leg cramps, suddenly, she heard a loud noise, and before Xiaoling, who was floating in the water, could realize what was going on, she was swept into it by a wave. The water flow wrapped around her, broke through the gate all the way, and fell down the waterfall. She didn't even have time to utter an exclamation, she choked several times of water, and when the world was spinning, she had already reached the river below. What happened? She struggled hard in the river, fighting against the huge impact of the water flow. In a daze, she could only vaguely remember someone shouting, "The floodgates are open. Danger," but she couldn't hear anything. Her body hit the rocks in the river, and she felt severe pain, and then she found that her arms could not be used. Is it a fracture? She panicked. If she broke her bones, she wouldn't be able to swim out of the deep and fast current. Would she die from this today? She paddled a few more times, but in vain, and her body sank little by little. In the haze, she saw the changing water waves above her head, and the golden sky shining through the water waves. Someone seemed to be swimming towards her. When she got closer, she could see the person's face clearly, Pei Zion. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 338. Chapter 338 Rescue in the Water. Is it an illusion? Was she seeing him because she was dying? However, the touch of the body was so real. His strong arms supported her body and led her upwards. It turned out that he really came to save her. At that moment, Xiaoling's eyes filled with tears, and all her grievances and unwillingness disappeared. At the most critical moment in her life, at the critical moment of life and death, it turned out that he could lay down his life for her. He is her God, it turns out, he always has been. She struggled to raise her head and followed his strength up the river. In order to lighten his burden, she used her good arm to paddle together. Inadvertently, she touched his wrist. There seemed to be some hard metal object on his wrist that fell off. Pei Zion suddenly turned around and his expression changed. Sensing that he was stagnant, Xiaoling pulled him hard and motioned for him to move quickly. They are all too small before the brute force of nature. If they stay in the water for even 1 second, the danger will increase exponentially. However, Pei Zion did not leave. He looked at the direction in which the thing sank, and then at her. A bad premonition arose in Xiaoling's heart. An inexplicable fear filled her heart. It was a very cold feeling, unprecedented terror and darkness, she couldn't explain what that feeling was. She was at a loss and could only press with all her strength. She pulled him and looked at him pleadingly, hoping that he could take her out of here quickly. However, he opened her hand bit by bit. His strength was strong and determined, and he peeled her off his arm like a dead thing. Xiaoling didn't expect it to be like this. She finally knew where the fear just came from. In the cold river water, in the rapids where life was in danger at any time, he abandoned her for something she didn't know what it was. She lost her support, her injured arm was unable to paddle, and involuntarily, she was carried away by the current and swept away. She opened her eyes wide, desperately trying to see his face clearly, and wanted to ask him why, but he was reluctant to give even a glance at the last moment. He had already turned around and followed the lost item. Starting from the heart, the cold spreads. Xiaoling only felt that her body was getting heavier and heavier, and she was becoming more and more numb, as if she could no longer feel her own existence. After an unknown period of time, she fell into silent darkness. It seemed as if I had had a very long dream. In the dream, there was a huge cage, the devil, and boundless darkness. She ran away desperately, terrified as if being chased by some monster, until a light appeared in front of her. A faint, but bright and warm light. She ran towards the light and faintly heard someone calling her name, Ling, Xiao Ling, Yesin Ling. Who is she? Isn't she Xiao Ling? How could it be Yesin Ling? She paused as she ran toward the beam of light, and her voice became clearer, Xiao Ling, Yesin Ling, wake up, wake up. Promise me, nothing will happen to you. Whose voice is it? So familiar. Yesin Ling. Yes, she is Yesin Ling. Who is Xiao Ling? No. She is no longer Xiao Ling. Yesin Ling, come back. Yesin Ling, the familiar voice called eagerly. She walked hard towards the light in the darkness, staggering, and finally, it was within reach. Her eyelids trembled slightly, and she opened her eyes slightly. What came into view was Li Lei's anxious face. Xiao Ling, you finally woke up. He was dripping with water, and his body and face were stained with mud and water plants. He looked dirty and embarrassed. But the smile he showed her was the most beautiful smile she had ever seen in her life. He just smiled like that and said to her, I will save you. Believe me, I will save you. Xiao Ling, and I say talk, stay awake, don't fall asleep. She felt it was difficult to breathe and felt uncomfortable in her lungs, but she still obeyed his command and opened her mouth. What did you say? He didn't hear clearly. Ugly, so ugly, she said weakly. He was stunned for a moment, then laughed again, and wiped her face clean of the water stains and grass mud. You're not ugly, he said. You are always the most beautiful. I mean, you are ugly, she coughed and smiled weakly. He was stunned again, but this time he said, okay, if you say I am ugly, I will be ugly, but you are not allowed to dislike me. My body has been exposed to you, and you have to be responsible for me. As he said, he took off all the wet clothes on his body, revealing his perfectly proportioned upper body and slender legs. He hugged her almost naked, and then covered the two of them with those wet clothes. What are you doing? She didn't have the strength to fight, looked at him, and said with difficulty, you will catch a cold. I'm in good health and I'm fine, Li Lei said, this way you can keep warm. Xiao Ling, hold on a little longer, I have already called for rescue, and someone will come to save you soon. You will survive. Her body was frighteningly cold, and her pulse was so weak that it was almost impossible to check. Li Lei had never been so scared in his life. He watched helplessly as her life passed by, but he didn't know if he could be saved. His body was also very cold. When he went into the water to rescue her, he found that she was entangled in the water plants at the bottom of the river and she had fallen into a coma. It took a lot of effort for him to lift her up. He was almost exhausted and needed to replenish his strength. However, even in this situation, he was still worried about her who was weaker, and used his body temperature as weak as the embers of a flame to warm her colder body. Hypothermia was fatal, and he couldn't let her die. He hugged her for a while, and she regained her breath slightly. I'm fine, you, don't be like this. She could see that he was very cold, his lips were black and blue from the cold, and he was shivering in the autumn wind in the mountains. However, he put her ice-like hands on his chest. She wanted to move away, but he held on tightly. I'm fine. Although his body was shivering from the cold, his voice was steady, we will all survive. I want to protect you for the rest of my life, but I can't die in front of you. Hey! She interrupted him with some dissatisfaction. How could this person live or die? He smiled, lowered his head and kissed her forehead. I'm here, don't be afraid. Following her pale face, he saw the amulet around her neck. It was made of sycamore wood. He had poured half of his blood into it. She prays for blessings and shares disasters. You will be fine, Li Lei said again, you are wearing the amulet I gave you. She hummed softly. I remember that at the beginning, she laughed at his amulet as a 50-cent street stall product, and she was unwilling to wear it no matter what. It wasn't until I experienced all these things that I discovered that even if it's a 50-cent piece of street food, or even something picked up on the roadside, the thoughtfulness contained in it is priceless. He is the one who can protect her with everything he has. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Sci-fi Niang. Chapter 339. Chapter 339. An understatement of apology. Finally waited for rescue. The people on the program team were surprised when they saw Lilei. However, the current situation was not the time for curiosity and gossip. Everyone worked hard to get them into the car and sent them to the hospital for treatment. Xiaoling's condition is quite serious. Hypoxia and water in the lungs caused a series of sequelae, and she had to be hospitalized. Lilei accompanied her for a complete set of examinations, settled her into the ward, and then went for his own examination. The examination results showed that there was no major problem. He took a shower and changed into clean and warm clothes, and was active again. Xiaoling was weakly injecting an intravenous drip on the bed. Seeing how energetic he was, she felt jealous. Why is it that everyone climbed out of the river, but nothing happened to you? Because I'm awesome, classmate Li Xiaoli smiled shamelessly. Xiaoling was silent for a moment, then said, "It's very dangerous." Although that pool is not big, the momentum after opening the gate is no joke. Why did you go down to rescue me with such a strong current? What if something happens? I didn't think much about it, Lilei said, looking at her guilty face, and then added, I have swum in stormy seas, this little wind and waves are nothing. He smiled and said, you look, aren't we all fine? Be happy and don't look so sad. She smiled somewhat reluctantly. Lilei thought she was tired, so he asked her to have a good rest. Before leaving, he seemed to think of something again and turned around. By the way, there is a person who drowned too. He lives next door to you. This hospital is very small, with only a few single intensive care units close together. Xiaoling raised her head when she heard the words, who. As soon as the words came out, she understood, besides Pei Xian, who else could it be? Thinking of that time, in the cold and fast torrent, he broke her hand apart with every force, dropped her without looking back, and let her die. She had told herself thousands of times that she could not love him. Escape from his hunt by any means possible. Even advised him to get married, treating him only as a somewhat special friend. But, nowadays, can't we even be friends? Don't call me a friend, even if you are a stranger. I'm afraid he won't be so cruel. Her life was not as important as a dead object in Pei Xian's eyes. She lowered her eyes slightly to hide her emotions. Sure enough, Lilei replied, Pei Xian. He stared at her nervously. I heard from the staff of the program that when the accident happened, Pei Xian was the first person to jump into the waterfall to save her. Does she know about this? He's in the hospital anyway, she murmured. At that time in the water, his swimming style was strong and powerful, and it seemed easy to break out of the water. Unless. Xiaoling thought of the thing that fell off his wrist. Did he risk his life for that thing? Lilei thought she didn't know about Pei Xian going into the water, so he hesitated and said, he also went to rescue you, but it seems that I was more lucky and found you first. Their wards were too close together, and sooner or later she would. When she met Pei Xian, instead of hearing something from that man's mouth, it was better to tell her now. At least we won't add fuel to the fire. Classmate Li Xiaoli. I was making a calculation in his mind, but unexpectedly, Xiaoling just said lightly. You seem, not surprised at all. Lilei was a little confused. There's nothing surprising. Xiaoling's expression was very indifferent. I don't believe he would jump down for me. Maybe something fell into the water. Before the accident, I seemed to hear him looking for something. What he said was half true and half false, which made Lilei unsure. Maybe Peizian really wasn't here to save her? When he thought about it, he felt relieved. Maybe he was looking for something, Lilei said. When the search and rescue team found him, he was unconscious on the river beach. He was holding a watch in his hand and refused to let go. I heard that the dial was broken. I know why he's so precious. Watch, suddenly, her heart skipped a beat. She knows all the watches Peizian wears, including many world-famous ones. But with that man's character, no matter how precious the object is, it won't be treasured like this, unless... She thought of the watch she customized for him many years ago. Patek Philippe, a set of two, both men's and women's models are engraved. Unfortunately, the customization cycle was too long. It took 3 years from ordering to picking up the goods. Before she could see it with her own eyes, she had a quarrel with him, was imprisoned, and was murdered. Could it be that he is wearing that watch now? Based on her understanding of Peizian, only something with such commemorative value is worthy of being remembered by him. But... She laughed to herself. Did she understand him? If you really knew him, why would there have been so many unbearable past events? In fact, he is unpredictable and may always remain a mystery to her. She turned her head sideways and looked out the window. Lilei told her to take a good rest and left. Xiaoling was recovering from her injuries in the ward and living in seclusion. Occasionally when she went out for a walk, she met Peizian in the small garden. He was sitting alone on the bench under the maple tree, looking down at something in his hand. The long coat on his shoulders dragged to the ground and was stained with dust, but he didn't even notice it. Xiaoling didn't want to meet him and was about to take a detour when he raised his head. Yet people looked so haggard, even she, the first woman to fall into the water, looked worse. Xiaoling felt sad, not knowing whether it was for herself or for him. Peizian looked at her deeply, with complicated eyes, as if he wanted to take her appearance into his heart. Xiaoling felt uncomfortable when he saw her. When she spoke, she was a bit sarcastic. Why are you looking at me? Go find your watch. Thanks to you, I almost died at the bottom of the river. He whispered, I'm sorry. Sorry, Xiaoling laughed angrily, you almost killed me, and now you just apologize lightly? Peizian, boss Pei, director Pei. If you don't want to save me, don't give me hope in the first place. Don't you think it's cruel to throw me into when you think I can be saved? Same in the last life, she thought he was the savior, but in the end, he was just lifted high and fell heavily. Peizian, do I owe you anything? She said, even if I owe you, how much do I owe? 5 billion? 10 billion? Just make a number and I'll pay it back to you. Why do you always come here to haunt me? Why are you always disturbing my peace of mind? The man opposite didn't speak and clenched the things in his hands. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weiniang. Chapter 340. Chapter 340. Happy birthday, I love you. Xiaoling saw clearly this time. The reflection of the metal slightly leaking out from between his fingers, the damaged dial, and the stopped hands, still exuded a low-key luxurious nobility, that is, Patek Philippe. She recognized this watch. It was a unique custom design and it was indeed a gift from her. I can't help but feel it's ridiculous. I can't protect a living person, but I still have to protect her relics. Anyway, since he loves Xiaoling's skin so much, let him stick to the memories for the rest of his life. In this life, she never wants to care about him, and she no longer expects to be friendly with him. She just treats them as, never knowing each other. She turned around and walked out step by step. I can't betray her. His voice was low and seemed to contain endless pain, coming from behind her. Xiaoling's footsteps paused slightly, but only for a moment, and she walked forward silently. Pei Xian maintained his bowed posture for a long time. The bleak autumn maple leaves fell on his shoulders. In the palm of his hand, the broken Patek Philippe was very cold. He rubbed the back of the dial little by little with his fingertips, where a line of small characters was engraved in elegant script, Iya Ihan. Simple, but it was her last confession to him. At that time, she fell off the stage, her brain burst, and she died tragically on the spot. For a long period of time afterwards, he was depressed, and his life was in a state of confusion. He even had no energy to take care of the emperor's affairs. Sometimes, he would feel that he had died with her, and that the people living in this world were just zombies. Chu Chen tried to persuade him to cheer up. Xia Yu also tried hard to persuade him, and many of his senior executives and confidants were worried and looking forward to him getting back on his feet. But he knew that they were just afraid that the trees would fall and the animals would scatter after his downfall, and that the company's power would be taken over by others, leaving the nest unfinished. No one really cares about him. The woman who would panic because of his minor illness and give him a big hug when he comes home from a late-night meeting will never come back. He numbed himself with alcohol and allowed his family's enemies to criticize him. Just a little bit away, the position of head of the Pei family is about to change hands. Then, on his 34th birthday, he received a gift. Packaged in a dark violet velvet box, decorated with dots of baby's breath, as gorgeous as the vast night sky. When you open it, you will see a pair of custom-made couple watches nestled together. The men's model is low-key and luxurious, while the women's model is exquisite and elegant. Both watches have words engraved on the back. The men's watch is engraved with Iya Ihan. The female watch is engraved with Hung Ai Ling. There is also a small card written by her hand. Even if our love cannot be exposed, as long as we wear this pair of watches, your body, your skin, my body and my skin can always feel each other's love. Zi Hung, happy birthday, I love you. At that moment he burst into tears. He held the pair of watches and sat in the study all night. When he came out the next day, he had already restored his former cold determination and ordered his colleagues to reorganize the huge group. Within a few days, the situation was under control. Yes, he cannot fall. He wanted to hold the Pei family and the emperor firmly in the palm of his hand. Only in this way can he successfully bury her in the ancestral grave, so that she can still enjoy the same glory after death as she did in life. As long as he is alive, they will not dare to remove her bones. When he dies with the power in hand, he will be able to choose a suitable heir and take care of her after her death. He has figured it out. The Pei family can still function without him, but she cannot live without him. For the past 2 years, he has been wearing this men's watch on his wrist. Whenever he is tired, irritable, misses her, or is in pain, he just touches it and thinks of the words engraved under the dial. I have the motivation to live well again. Her love is always there. Now, it is broken. His fingers traced along the damaged dial, leaving a trace of blood, which was bright red and shocking. Xiaoling. He murmured in a low voice, not knowing who he was calling, what should I do? Pei Xian was very scared and panicked like never before. In the torrent, between the watch and Yexin Ling, he hesitated, but if he gave up the watch to save Yexin Ling, would it mean betrayal of his dead lover? He told himself, no, the only one he truly loved was Xiaoling, and it couldn't be anyone else. As if to strengthen his faith, he abandoned Yexin Ling and pursued the Patek Philippe. But these days, I often dream late at night, and what I dream about is always Yexin Ling's unbelievable, miserable, and desperate eyes. Those eyes conveyed so many emotions. In the dream, they actually overlapped with Xiaoling's eyes. Woke up in the middle of the night, he could hardly tell who was accusing him, it was as if what he abandoned at that time was not Yexin Ling, but the dead Xiaoling herself. It feels so weird. but very heavy. Pei Xian thought, did he really fall in love with Ye Xinling? When he was rescued and woke up from a coma, he grabbed the medical staff and the first thing he asked was, "How is Ye Xinling?" After receiving the news that she was safe, he was greatly relieved. Take a breath. But, how should he face Xiaoling, who is under the 9 springs? The fallen maple leaves fell all over him, and he sat alone and desolately, unaware of it. Xiaoling returned to the ward in one breath and asked Lin Yunan when she could go through the discharge procedures. "Why are you rushing to be discharged from the hospital?" Lin Yunan said. "Drowning is very troublesome and has many sequelae. If the brain is deprived of oxygen, you will become stupid, even though you are not very smart to begin with. In any case, it is better to stay in the hospital for observation for a while. The program team has changed the game script, and the next steps will be some very relaxing activities." Xiaoling said, "Then I want to transfer to another hospital." "Why transfer to another hospital?" As soon as Lin Yunan finished speaking, he glanced at the ward next door and suddenly realized, for him. Tisk tisk, it's really heartless. Speaking of which, Pei Xian is also pitiful. There are so many people, and he was the first to get into trouble. I followed you and jumped down regardless. I was not lucky enough to save you. Why are you hiding from me? You are such a gossip." Xiaoling was unhappy. "Go and help me transfer to another hospital, otherwise I will find someone else to do it." "Okay, let's not talk anymore," Lin Yunan staggered out. "How about I transfer you to a hospital?" "Where should you transfer?" "I think it's better to transfer to the hospital near Tianyi. It's also convenient for your home. I came to see you." He had a hunch that there was something wrong between her and Pei Xian, but the person involved didn't want to talk about it, and he didn't bother to get to the bottom of it, as long as it didn't affect his work. As for whether it will affect work, probably not. End of this chapter.